Hello, it's your financial friend Maggie. Welcome to the Inside Out Money Podcast. Hey, Andrew.
Hey, Maggie.
It's good to see you.
Yeah, same here.
I'm excited for this topic. I know I say this about every topic, but I'm excited about all the topics. But this is one that you and I, like in various other podcast discussions and just life discussions, have scratched the surface of and made brief comments about, but never really dug into.
Yeah.
Before I tell you what we're going to talk about, welcome to Inside Out Money. This is a personal finance podcast focused on redefining wealth from the inside out. Each week, I speak with a rotating set of co-hosts about a different financial topic, something that will help you improve your financial mindset and tactics. And today we have co-host Andrew here. And we're going to talk about the one choice that I believe, if done well, will save you, I'd argue, millions to some people, depending on what income bracket you're in.
Yeah.
Thousands to anyone, millions to some people. And it is not which index fund you invest in. It is the environment, or I should say environments you put yourself in.
Yeah. And I think environment, I think the plural is important here because it's not just people when they think about their environments, they may think of their immediate, they think of their neighborhood they live in. But it also extends to all the other aspects of social interactions that you have. Work is a big one.
Yeah.
And the people, I mean, ultimately it comes down to the people who you associate with and the friend groups that you create, and the neighbor and the areas and it's all the social interactions that you have throughout your daily life that can play into this.
Yeah, I totally agree. So there's so much to talk about with this, but I do want to read a quick story, a parable that I say inspired this episode, but it reminded me about this topic because, again, we've talked about this before. We've just not really dug deep into it. So this is a parable that I'm going to read you. Do you know what a parable is, Andrew?
I couldn't give you a good definition of it, but I know what it is.
Oh, it actually, I didn't know the second part of it. I just Googled it. It's a simple story, which I thought that's what it was just
like
a story.
Like the turtle and the hare, right?
Yeah, a story used to illustrate a moral lesson. But this actually says, simple story to illustrate a moral or spiritual lesson as told by Jesus in the Gospels. I didn't know that that's where it came from. So perhaps Jesus told this. I don't know. Who knows? But actually, religion's a good example of environments people put themselves into, right? Good and bad. Okay, so the story is, one day, a boy approached his father and asked, "What is my life worth?" The father handed his son a small stone and replied, "Take this stone to the market. If anyone asks the price, raise 2 fingers and don't say anything." The boy did as he was told and went to the market. An old woman approached him and asked, "How much is this rock?" "I want it for my garden." The boy held up 2 fingers, to which the woman replied, $2, I'll take it. Before she could complete the deal, the boy turned and ran home to tell his father what had happened. I like that the boy didn't actually even sell the rock. His father nodded and said, "Okay, now take the stone to the museum. If anyone asks the price, raise 2 fingers and don't say anything." The boy did as he was told and went to the museum. A man in a suit approached him and said, "How much is that stone? I want it for my home." The boy held up 2 fingers, to which the man replied, $200, I'll take it. Before he could complete the deal, again, the boy turned home and ran to tell his father what had happened. His father never taught the boy how to seal the deal, close the deal. Okay, his father nodded and said, "Okay, now take the stone to the precious gem store. If the owner asks the price, raise 2 fingers and don't say anything." The boy did as he was told and went to the stone store. The owner of the store approached him and asked, "Where did you find that rare stone? I've been looking for it my entire life. How much will you sell it for?" The boy held up 2 fingers, to which the man replied, $20,000. I'll take it. But once again, before he could complete the deal, the boy turned and ran home to tell his father what had happened. So I think the lesson of this story, obviously, in case you didn't catch it, is you choose your own worth, you determine your own value, right? You get to place yourself in the right situation for how that value might be attributed. But the lesson that I take from that is the financial reality of this woman in the market, the business person in a museum, and the owner of a precious gemstone store, right, are 3 different social environments you could put yourself in and you could be hanging around with and trying to keep up with, right? Like the stone never changed, the environment did.
Right. Absolutely.
I just think, from a financial tie-in, our money's worth is also determined by the environment we put ourselves in, right? So, I mean, you could take this, again, the sort of spirit of a parable, right? The story is meant to illustrate a lesson. And in this case, I think there's an interesting financial lesson here. What is, $100 to one person may seem like so much more based on more or less based on the environment that they're put in, right? Or that they put themselves in, which is your choice, right? You put yourself in these environments.
Right. And then you get down to the environments and how everything is relative to your anchor point in your environment.
Yes.
And if you have significant means in an environment that does not have significant means, you feel very wealthy.
Yeah.
And if you put yourself in an environment that has lots of means and you don't, you suddenly feel very poor. Right. And it's classic cost of living, right? You go to Palo Alto, California, and your, $500,000 house is a shack, right?
Yeah.
And you put yourself in
Atlanta,
the middle, Atlanta, or the Midwest,
yeah.
somewhere in the middle of the country, and that $500,000 would be a mansion.
Yeah,
right?
A brand new custom built home,
right?
That has all the finishes and features you'd like.
And we've talked about this before. The housing is a huge component of this, because that kind of, while the environments you're in, probably where you decide to live is potentially the most influential of all of them, because then it also influences the other social interactions that you have. And so that neighborhood selection is very important.
Yeah, I think this is like such a nuanced topic, right? Like many topics we discuss, but even the neighborhood you choose to live in, I think, within that, there are very different houses in many neighborhoods, right? And I keep bringing this example up because I am confronted with it every single day lately, because I drive by my neighbor's house, 10 times a day, coming and going. But there's there's different size houses in my neighborhood, right? I have one of the older, smaller houses, and I live in a 3,000 square foot house. So like small is all relative, right? But there's a house right across the street from me that is like 8,000 or 9,000 square feet. And it was a big, nice, like multi-million-dollar house. Someone just bought it, and they've been like ripping out everything and redoing everything and just took down everything in the backyard. Anyways, there's just every day, even my kids are like, oh my gosh, they're doing so much. And like my kids have been in this house and they're like, it was already really nice. And my point is just, even within the same neighborhood, you can have very different environments that you're in and things that you then have to keep up with and maintain. And it is just the decision of buying, my house versus that house would have a massive difference on your finances today and long term.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's talk about the different financial environments you could put yourself in, right? The first one is, housing is related to it, but the first one is the social environment you put yourself in, right? And obviously there's the physical piece that we were just talking about, but there's also it's still physical, I guess, but it's the people you're spending your time with, right?
And who's influencing you? And I think we've all experienced the quote social pressures, right? And cars are a good one. I certainly have been influenced by those around me. When it comes to car purchases.
And when you bought the fanciest car you've ever owned, Andrew, which you've since sold, but you were around people who had very nice cars. You were working in corporate America. You had a pretty senior level job.
Yeah. And
at the time, that probably was in line with, if not even probably like less than what other people had.
Yeah. And when I think about the 4 cars, how many cars have I owned? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 4 cars. 2 of those cars were significantly influenced by the people around me. So when I lived in Vermont, I bought my first car, which was Subaru Outback. I financed it, paid it off, and that was the last car that I ever was going to finance.
By the way, that's super on brand for Vermont.
Correct, absolutely. Everyone in Vermont has a Subaru, basically. And it was an Outback wagon. Right?
Yeah.
You have to have an Outback wagon. And then I moved down to Atlanta, and I realized that literally no one drives a Subaru in Atlanta. Although Maggie, you had one. I had one, yeah. You had one, yeah. But there's like one Subaru dealer in Atlanta where there's like 15 in the whole state of Vermont, right? So I come down to Atlanta and I'm driving the Subaru Outback, and I was at Home Depot for a while, and then I went to another company, and the CEO of this other company it was a huge car guy, and he would rip on me almost every single day about me driving a Subaru Outback. He was driving a Ferrari to work.
And by then it was like an older Subaru Outback.
Correct, exactly. And so he'd been giving me a hard time, and I probably after a year working there, I ended up buying a BMW coupe.
Oh, I forgot you ever. I just knew the Tesla, but yeah.
I was totally influenced by that CEO, and also the people around him were all car people, and so that purchase totally influenced me. And then
were you like happier in it though?
No, because the BMW was in the shop constantly. It was insane how many issues I had with that car.
Versus your Subaru.
Correct. Yeah. Well, the Subaru was okay, but compared to like my current Toyota, I mean, it's like crazy.
Yeah.
And then the Tesla that I bought was totally influenced. My boss had a Tesla. He and I, Maggie was your former boss too.
Yeah, right.
And he had one, and he let me drive it a couple times, and I was totally enamored by it, and he definitely pushed me over the edge on that one. So yeah, those types of interactions and the people who you're around will, like, if you're hanging out with a whole bunch of car people, you're likely going to be purchasing some more cars than maybe actually you need, right?
And some of it is probably a mix of, people that are actively pushing you to do those things, but even like in my case, no one was like actively talking to me about cars or pushing anything. I just see the cars that everybody drives into the parking deck with, right? Every day when I go to work for 15 years, the last place I worked, you had to walk through there was different executive parking that was like very close. You could not get into the building without walking through it, which by the way is like a terrible design, but whatever. You had to walk through what was the executive parking deck, not just for our company, but for the whole building. And so it was a very small parking deck. It had like 40 spots in it and the nicest cars. And so even that is an example of like, half those people I didn't even know, right? 75% of those people I didn't even know, but I would walk by their cars every day. And there was not, I want to say 99% of the cars in that lot were fancy cars. Like high-end cars. Every now and then there'd be like a Honda Accord or something. But I also know that sometimes those people, if they were traveling, they'd let their admins use their parking pass. And often that was when I would see a different car. Because I knew that even like with my own boss, like when his car wasn't there, I'm like, oh. Okay, so it is just, my point is those influences are direct and indirect. And they are real. And there's cars, there's homes, there's lots of
bikes.
Things.
I hang out with a whole bunch of bike people now that it's very common for people in my social group to have $10,000 plus bikes.
Yeah.
Very common, right?
Yeah.
And so you feel that there's that social pressure of making sure you got the latest and greatest.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing I'd say also is that it's having exposure to different types of environments can be both positive and negative. So for example, like when I go visit my sister in Los Angeles and I'm driving through Beverly Hills and kind of the really expensive areas, like you can't help but not be influenced by some of this. And I just think to myself, what if I was actually living in this area like 100% of the time, right? Like I'm getting influenced just by being a visitor there. And at the same time, this is one of the benefits of global travel. I think that I have been significantly shaped by the travel that I've been very fortunate to go to in places like China and India and South and Central America, where you see people living in a completely different environment.
Yeah.
And you get an unbelievable appreciation for what you have and the contentment that you come back from those trips with just contentment, right? It's not like you go to Beverly Hills and you drive around there and you have this lust for a different lifestyle. You go spend a couple of days in a Chinese factory for 5 days, and you come back with just an unbelievable level of gratitude.
Yeah.
And putting yourself in those different environments can have a big influence on your perspective and how you approach financial and money decisions.
Yeah, and remember, you don't need to travel around the world to see those different environments,
right?
Because you may not have the means or the time to do that at this point in your life. You can just drive to a different neighborhood, right? You can drive, I just within my own neighborhood, I can drive down the street and I see, I can drive 5 minutes away, or I can just, drive to different parts of Atlanta and I see a very different neighborhood, right? And it does give you appreciation for what you do have. And I think, the idea of having more of an abundance mindset versus a scarcity mindset, we'll talk more about mindset in a minute, is incredibly important. And even just, you were saying, Andrew, it can have like a good or bad influence, right? To many people, you often assume it's having a, quote, like bad influence because it's making you want to, from a financial standpoint, it's making you want to spend more. But you also can reframe it. Because I watch stuff like Keeping Up with the Kardashians, and I genuinely mean this. I know people might be like, "Oh no, if you could have all that money, you'd want it." I don't want all that money or fame. I don't believe it brings happiness, and I do enjoy like watching the show sometimes, to be clear. But the complexity of their lives, the lack of privacy, the like all of that.
Oh yeah, like I think you got to separate. Like fame is just like a whole different animal, right? That I think you and I have zero desire for, right? Like we don't want inside out money to be blowing up, right? Where you're noticed on the street.
Yes, I agree. Yeah, and where people are like in my business. Yes, right. But also there's just, aside from the fame, there's the excess, the extreme wealth, and even just the example of the people across the street from me. Like that looks stressful to me. Like there are people. There's literally like 20 people at their house every day. I can just like, I'm like cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. I mean, even my kids like who go by it every day to get to their bus stop are commenting about it and are like, oh my God, there's so many people there. And like, that just looks really expensive. And they tore down all these trees and now they're replanting trees. And like, and just, I think, if you can reframe it to realizing really that like less is more, and that level of stuff and projects and everything brings a level of anxiety to me that like, I don't want, right? And I've learned that less is more, and I can appreciate that less is more. And sometimes I need to remind myself, right? But it's easier to remind myself based on the environment I put myself in, because 90% of my neighborhood is not that house. They're actually outliers in my neighborhood. And I love my neighborhood because, when I drive around, everybody has like what I'd call like normal cars. Every now and then I see like a luxury car, but like 80% of the cars in my neighborhood are like Camrys and Hondas and minivans and, just regular cars. And I should say like regular, but you know what I mean? And that makes me feel like I feel good every time I'm kind of coming and going, because I'm not constantly getting kind of tempted with things, if that makes sense. And so I think the point is, that social environment that we put ourselves in is incredibly important. And I remember that like age-old advice of like, you should buy the like cheapest house in the neighborhood in terms of like an investment.
Right.
But, be careful with that advice, because that also
actually advise my people and some of the clients I work with to buy the most expensive house in the neighborhood.
Yeah,
right?
for that reason, right?
For that exact reason is to minimize some of the social pressures. But outside of cars and houses, boats are also a good one. And someone's always going to want a bigger boat, right? You look at all these extreme, like these crazy mega yachts. Like everyone's just trying to outdo everyone else, and ego plays a huge part in all of this, right? That everyone's just trying to see who can have the biggest yacht, right?
Bigger and better, yeah. Okay, so another financial environment outside of the social environment is really your information environment, right? This is what, not just financial content, but just in general, what content are you consuming, right? But are you surrounded by
the Kardashians?
Yeah, that's fair. As we're saying, like, are you even just if I use like social media as an example, right? The algorithm gives you what you engage with, right? So are you engaging with all these like get rich quick schemes and like Bitcoin bros and crypto bros and people that are, even just I'm a fan of real estate, but there's a lot of like scammy real estate content out there that's implying that it's like real estate's hard and you got to like have the stomach for it and a bunch of other things for it.
I thought it was so easy. I was just watching everything on Instagram yesterday.
You could just get to like 49 properties,
49?
Tomorrow.
Dude, I'm talking about 100 doors, man. Like,
100. I love when they call them doors too. Yeah. I don't call mine doors, which is a good example of the information you surround yourself with. But look, no, I'm not judging you if you do. I'm just saying, you can read books like The Art of Spending Money by Morgan Housel, which we just did a podcast review on, right? And that could be influencing you. Mm-hmm. Or you could be, seeing all this like get rich quick scheme stuff, right? And I think, the information and the content that you are consuming are incredibly big impacts on how you feel about what you already have in life and what you want in life in the future, right? And so like I consume a lot of Stoic Buddhism content, and like it's constantly reminding me to be grateful for what I have and to want less. And I also, by the nature of just being a human being in this modern world we live in, I also see a lot of content about, the Kardashians and just like stuff online, right? And I get marketed to just like you all do. And I try to do my best to, I constantly, my point is I'm still getting all this stuff thrown at me and I still have the desires, but I do try to actively control the information I see and who I follow and whether I even spend time on social media. And I think, that information that we are consuming that we do have control over, right? Like we can unsubscribe from emails. We can change who's in our feed. We can quit following people who make us feel bad about ourselves, right? Like we have a lot of control over the information we consume.
Yeah, I think controlling the information is extremely important. I'm going to try and stay off my social media soapbox, but the more good sources of information you can surround yourself with, the more insulated you can become against some of these less desirable sources of information, right? So
insulated is a great word, Andrew.
Thanks. Love Personal Finance Club, love Morgan Housel, Choose Fi, right? Like these good, solid financial sources of content, and if you have those, it can help you. Like I cringe when I see some of this get rich quick stuff or some of the, hey, this is so easy. And then like you should always have like your radar just needs to be on. You just need to be heightenedly aware on when you're on social media and some of this stuff comes up, and ideally that you want to try and suppress it as much as possible.
Yeah, and you suppress it by not engaging with it and not following these people and not, rage following them. I mean, I know people who follow people that like they're annoyed by just because it's like hard not to watch,
Right.
But you got to know yourself.
It's like a car accident.
Yeah. And you have to know yourself. Like I know that when I watch the Kardashians, which I don't even like watch that often, but I've seen them and I do watch it sometimes. And I love like Below Deck. It's one of my favorite shows, by the way.
Oh my goodness. Maggie, I don't know if you and I can be friends anymore.
I love it for the staff. I actually love like watching them like work on the boat, and I love the interactions. I don't like it. It makes me dislike like extreme wealth, because you see, I mean, not everyone, there's like some good people that come on there in terms of the guests, but I mostly like it. Like I watch it for the staff, for the yachties. Oh, sorry. My point about Below Deck was you got to know yourself, right? If watching a show like that makes you feel bad about yourself, that actually makes me like want wealth less for what it's worth. I told Greg the other day, I was like, I would love to work as a deckhand for a season. Like it kind of looks fun. It's just like outside. You're like, it looks interesting, right? I want to like dock a big yacht, right? And I love Captain Sandy.
You and I can go apply to be on. We'll go on for a season.
Yeah, I don't know that we're not like, we wouldn't bring enough drama, They'd be like, oh, these people keep talking about like financial content while they're working. But if you have to know yourself, right? So if you can watch a show like that and it gives you the right feelings, but if you watch a show like that and it makes you feel bad about yourself, don't watch it anymore, right? Like stop. And so stop consuming the things that are not helping you be more of the type of person you want to be and going in the direction you want to go in life. And this is what this whole episode is about, right? You control the environment you're in. Yes, there might be some things that are harder for you to control. So for example, when I was working in corporate America, I didn't live similarly to all of my peers, right? So I was around an environment, and, Andrew, you gave examples with cars that were great examples. And I wasn't going to like quit my job over that, right? But I could compartmentalize and say like, look, I really like these people. We have a lot in common. We work well together, blah, blah, blah. But I'm not going to let this piece of what they're doing influence what I'm doing, right? And so you can kind of take the good with the bad. And I'm not implying that they're bad in any way. I'm just saying in terms of the influences that are good and bad for your personal financial situation, right? And then I think the last environment is the mindset, right? And we talked about this. You talked about this with world travel, right? But this is one of the most crucial choices for your environment, right? Are you placing yourself in a mindset of scarcity or of abundance, right? And thinking of, are you able to, from a mindset standpoint, recognize like the world travel example that you gave, Andrew, or just even, again, drive like 5 minutes somewhere in any direction, and you will see people who have more than you, and you will see people who have less than you. And you can have this is a very early Buddhism lesson that I was taught, right? You can look at a house that's larger than yours, and you can think, oh, I wish I had a bigger house. Or you can look at someone who, you don't even need to look at someone who is, homeless or unhoused, right? You can just look at someone who is barely scraping by and doesn't have enough money to put food on the table every day, right? And then you can realize like, oh my gosh, I'm so grateful for what I have, and we have so much, and my kids have never once, not had food on the table or had to stress about what they were going to eat one day. And the mindset you place around things is one of the most crucial choices you can make to either help or hurt your financial life.
Yeah, 100% agree with that.
And so I think, what we want to wrap this discussion up with is just a bit of like empowerment and reminding you that there are steps you can take to choose your environment, right? And again, I'm not saying like quit your job or like, get away from everybody who has a different financial mindset than you, but also take some proactive steps to choose the environment you're placing yourself in, right? So one example is audit your circle, right? Take a hard look at your close friends, right? Are they helping you in terms of your financial goals? And, let's say you're in a bunch of debt, right? Are they helping to support you on that? Are they helping you to save money? Or are they like tempting you to book vacations you can't afford? Right? And there might be and that could be family aside from friends, right? And you might have to, I'm not saying like cut them off and never talk to them again, but you might want to be mindful of how their habits affect yours. And if you're constantly around people that are making you feel bad for having less than them, you might want to limit your time around those people, right? And I think about Camp Fi, right? I remember once when I had to like drag Greg to Camp Fi, and now he like loves it and wants to go. You'll get to Camp Fi and you're like, these are my people. And they're people that, and I don't even know how much money everybody has around me, but I've never met anyone at Camp Fi who made me feel bad about myself or what I have, or I've met people who I feel like have their priorities in order and are very like-minded, and they encourage me to make good financial decisions for my today life and my future life.
Yeah, and anybody who's interested in that FI topic and on that path has done certain things to get them to be in that position. So that makes sense that you're gonna find your tribe with those sort of people.
Yeah. So you want to find your tribe. That's a great way of saying it, right? And you might need to do some trimming of people that aren't in your tribe and who you want to spend less time with, and start building out your circle with more people that you want to spend more time around and that you are your tribe. We already talked about like the social media thing, but right, you can curate your feed, right? You can unfollow influencers or accounts that constantly are promoting consumerism, that are making you feel bad about yourself or making you want more things. And you can follow people who offer the right type of financial advice and inspiration and education and are the voices you want to hear more of.
Yeah, so I think the final point in this is that you don't have to take big swings, right? A lot of these decisions are small in nature, and you can take incremental steps to be more aware of the environments that you're placing yourself in and the decisions that you have in terms of your interactions with different people that can be positive influences and negative influences. And if they are negative influences, and you may not be able to extract yourself from all these situations, right? in the case for me where I had work colleagues were influencing me significantly, I wasn't about to go out and just quit my job, right? I'm now more aware, after some of those interactions that I had, I became more aware of the influences that were being had on me. And while I may not be able to completely eliminate them, I could potentially limit them or at least have a heightened set of awareness to try and check myself at minimizing some of those influences.
Yeah. And Andrew, I would imagine you also became more confident over time. Like, you experienced that. You bought the BMW, you bought the Tesla, you saw how it did and didn't make you feel and how it did and didn't change your life. And if it was for you, right? Like, we're all different. If you're listening to this podcast, I would assume you might be semi-aligned to how we're thinking, or you want to be more aligned to that, right? But I will say, I even, my own confidence in who I am and my ability, like when I was earlier in my career, I remember
you want to go with the flow.
Yeah. Well, and I remember seeing like the houses of like my boss and like my boss's boss and being like, oh, wow, their houses are like much bigger and nicer than mine. And should I have a house like that? Should I be upgrading? And like, I was more easily influenceable when I was younger. Yeah. And as I've gotten older, slowly, incrementally, I get a little more confident and intentional in my choices. And I'm able to kind of compartmentalize and be like, I still like those people. I still enjoy spending time with them. But like when I would go out to work dinners, people were talking about like fancy wine and like things that I just didn't, it didn't resonate with me. I didn't care about it and I didn't want to care about it. I think it's okay, right? You will get better at this stuff over time. You need to make these, series of small intentional choices and your confidence will grow and your experience will teach you more and more what is for you and what isn't for you.
Yeah, I love the confidence aspect and I think that confidence comes from having clear goals and knowing what you're working towards. And when you have that mindset shift that I come back to, time is the most valuable asset that you have. Yeah. And when you start to have that time frame of reference, you suddenly have things fall away, that the desires, the wants kind of fall to the wayside, and you're not as heavily influenced because you're confident in, hey, I'm working towards the goal that I have. The goal that I have is I want to maximize my freedom and I maximize my time. And if those are my goals, then what am I doing to work towards those? And you suddenly it's a very powerful tool to say, hey, I don't have these wants and desires like I used to.
Yeah. So yeah, in case you're wondering what is the one thing that we teased, right? I just want to wrap this up with a reminder of like the one thing is the environment that you are putting yourself in. And that includes the social environment, the information that you're consuming, the mindset that you have as a result of all these things. But it's the environment you're placing yourself in. It's the people you're around. It's the neighborhood you live in. It's, there's a lot of things within that one thing.
The country club, whether you decide to join the country club or not, that's a very big one.
Yeah. I had never even crossed my mind to join a country club, though I did actually go to a private golf club this weekend.
Yeah.
Actually with my ex-husband and his wife, and it was like for my daughter's birthday. And we had a lovely time and it was very nice. And it definitely was like fancy. Like it was just fancy. It was cool. It was nice, but I was like, I'd love to come here with other people. They always joke like the something about a boat. There's some saying of like, it's great to have a friend with a boat or something.
Yeah,
like
it's like what I tell my kids: dogs are great for it's great when you like other people's dogs.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Dogs, boats,
your
country
kids
clubs.
Can dog sit too, right?
Correct.
They can be dog walkers. They can spend time with other people's dogs. They don't have to like own the animals. Right. And I'm not trying to compare animals to boats or country clubs. So don't come. I mean, I get it. Like animals are great for you and your family.
I'm going to get a whole lot of hate mail on that.
I know. But animals are expensive. And
correct,
so
right.
If you can afford it, that's great. And if you can't, or if you don't want the additional responsibility and complexity in your life, then because my kids ask for pets like every day. But I'm always like, we have friends with pets. We have, neighbors with pets. You can walk. We have people who we pet sit for people. There's a lot of ways to get exposed to animals. I don't know. We're getting off on this, but the point is the environment you put yourself in.
Yes.
Yes. It matters. And it is one choice that can change your financial life dramatically. I stand by that statement.
I agree.
And if you don't agree with us or if you have additional thoughts, definitely reach out. We always love to hear your perspective on things. We appreciate you guys listening, and we appreciate you spending some time with us. If you've enjoyed this episode, we always love it. If you want to give us a written review on Apple Podcasts, or you can rate us on Spotify, we really appreciate it. Andrew, this is also a great episode to share with a friend or family member.
Agreed.
And then be like, let's talk about this, you know?
Yeah. You can also subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. If you have thoughts or questions, we'd love to hear from you, and you can leave a voicemail or text us at 404-981-3370 or hit us up on Instagram.
Awesome. And you know what? Like, listening to this podcast is a good example of the environment to put yourself in.
We'd like to think we're a good influence on you.
Yeah, right. I mean, Liz and I did.
If you disagree, let me know.
Yeah, Liz and I did just do an episode of like all of our favorite things, but a lot of them don't cost money.
Yeah.
So, and we have whole episodes where we talk about like our favorite free things, and so we mostly try to talk about being more intentional with your money, which I hope is a good influence on your financial life. And Andrew, even when we do the expense reviews, like it's a great influence because I remember really seriously that like there's a lot of crap I spend money on. It's all relative, right? But I like having the influences of people like you who do spend significantly less than our family even spends, and you are happy and healthy and thriving, right?
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You're like a world champion cyclist. You're more than thriving. So, okay. Well, thanks. It was great seeing you, Andrew.
Yeah, same.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.